So I want to talk about the principle of mental contrasting, talk about research on the mechanisms, how you can teach mental contrasting to others, as shown by intervention studies, and then finally talk about how we can disseminate mental contrasting to the public. So the principle, what is the principle? Just like I said, you imagine the desired future. You identify a wish. You imagine the fulfillment of that wish. But then you put the present reality, the obstacle of the present reality, in the way. And by doing that, you get the energy to overcome the reality, plus by understanding what the reality is, the obstacle is, you will now understand whether you can overcome it. And if you think you can overcome it, you fully go for it. That's goal setting. That's when you really attach you to your goal. Love it, go for it. But if you understand that the obstacle in your way is such that it doesn't fit in your life right now, or it's simply not surmountable, then you will understand that you either adjust your wish, postpone it to a more opportune time in your life, or let go. And if you let go, then you can save your energy for more promising goals. So mental contrasting is a mental strategy that helps you setting preferences to achieve some of the wishes and goals and to let go from others. So how does this look like? It's all theory so far. You ask yourself, what is currently your most important wish? So you might say, I want to be fully focused. Now, then you ask yourself, what is the best future outcome you associate with fulfilling your wish? You might say, then I would feel really engaged. You imagine now this idea of feeling engaged. Imagery is really important. Then you ask yourself, what is the most critical obstacle or reality in myself that stands in the way of me fulfilling my wish? Now, what you might say is, I worry not being good enough. So that's all. Then you imagine the worry. You really imagine it. And I will tell you later why the imagery is so important. So we did a lot of studies showing that mental contrasting helps people set preferences. Engage for some goals which are really feasible and disengage from the unfeasible. And we did studies in the health domain, in the achievement domain, in the interpersonal relationships domain, across the board. Now then we asked ourselves, how does this work? It's a conscious, short exercise, but why does it have these substantial effects? And we came up with 3 mechanisms, and we tested them elaborately in the lab. They are cognitive mechanisms, they are motivational mechanisms, and they are mechanisms linked to how people respond to setbacks after mental contrasting. Now, the cognitive mechanisms are such that when you imagine that outcome and the outcome and the obstacle are glued together. And not only that, the obstacle is glued to the means, to the behavior to overcome obstacles. And in addition, you recognize the obstacle in the way. So the invitation to a party is not a fun invitation anymore when it stands in the way of doing well in the interview tomorrow. So these 3 mechanisms, they run off without the people know. They are non-conscious, and they mediate or predict then the automatic behavior which follows later. So mental contrasting is a conscious exercise with non-conscious consequences that help directly affecting behavior. Motivational processes, what mental contrasting does, it increases your energy. And you can measure the energy again, blood pressure goes up. So you're ready to go. Also, self-report, yes, I feel energized, goes up. And then finally, when people start criticizing you or you experience setbacks, you say, give me more criticism because I need the information. So you process the information and you don't take it personally. It doesn't decrease your self-esteem or your sense of self-confidence. And all these mechanisms then predict the behavior later on. Now, the practical thing here is, by this short conscious exercise, mental exercise, you trigger these non-conscious processes which then directly change your behavior. Now, after we knew it does work, the mechanisms, I thought, can we teach it to people? Can we just teach this little exercise to people so they can use it in their daily life? I ask you, who wants to improve their time management? Then this study is for you. So we taught mental contrasting to hospital personnel, middle managers who had a really tough job, versus positive thinking, 2 groups. And then we said, go into your context and apply it. And afterwards, 2 weeks later, we came and we simply asked them how well they did with their time management and how well they did with their ease of deciding. So here, the blue bar is the mental contrasting group versus the positively thinking group. And they just did better in terms of time management. They also had an easier time to decide. And they completed some projects, but also let go from others. So helpful in terms of setting preferences in the individual professional context. Now, who is involved in negotiations? How can you improve your negotiation skill? So if mental contrasting helps to set preferences, people should be more successful in negotiation. In order to test that, we borrowed a paradigm from economics. And this is a simple game. There is a buyer and a seller of a car in this game. The seller and the buyer don't know what the other people want. And in that game, you get the most points if you find win-win solutions, meaning solutions that are good for the buyer and good for the seller. We had 4 groups: dietes, partners, which were trained on mental contrasting, versus just positively thinking about the future, or just dwelling on the obstacles, or nothing. And what you see here, that the blue mental contrasting bar, meaning the group who were induced to mentally contrast, gained more points, way more points, than the other 3 groups. And what is nice too, when you look the diet, the 2 partners of the diet are just fairer to each other because the points they got are more equal. So better finding of win-win solutions, no zero sum, and fairer treatment of your partner. Who has young children in school? So improving language skills. Sometimes language can be really boring. So this is a study which we did in 2nd graders because we wanted to know, can we teach it to very young people too? 2nd graders in Germany who didn't have yet any English lessons. We came in, little pictures, little words. We told them, okay, if you learn the words, we will come back 2 weeks later and we will test you. And then those who do really well on the quizzes, they get some sweets. Obviously, everybody got sweets. One group, mental contrasting, the other group, just positively thinking. So they learned more of these words in the mental contrasting group. And then we replicated that in Texas, in 5th graders, where we taught them how to say thank you in many different languages. Now, you can also control your emotions through mental contrasting. You probably have experienced these sometimes very vexing thoughts of if I only had taken that job, if only my dog hadn't died, if I only had taken that opportunity in the past. And these thoughts can be actually very painful. So can we downregulate these regret and resentment thoughts with mental contrasting? And we can. Actually, here you see less regret in the mental contrasting group, always the blue one, than in the two control groups, just positively thinking, just dwelling on the obstacles. And also less resentment, because very often if we blame some other people, we can be very resentful, and it might be a good idea to regulate down your resentment. Actually, in more studies, we found that through this lowering of regret and resentment, people can focus much better on the current task to a degree that they actually perform better on an intelligence test. Let's summarize. Reduce cigarette consumption, coping with stress, more exercise, healthy eating, problem solving interpersonally, taking social responsibility, help seeking, important because sometimes then if people don't seek help, it's too late. Help giving in emergency room nurses, reconciliation, saying sorry in an authentic way, engaging vocational training, studying abroad, performing in math, and performing better on creativity tests. Next question. What if the obstacle is really hard to overcome? Think about it when there are strong impulses. Or think about how difficult it is, for example, to control very strong anger or anxiety. So what can we do then? Let's complement mental contrasting with a strategy called implementation intentions. These are if-then plans that strengthen the already strengthened link between the obstacle and the behavior to overcome obstacle. And they come in the form of, if situation X occurs, then I will perform the goal-directed response Y. So these are implementation intentions, and they were discovered by Peter Gollwitzer. Now, if you apply that to the example we had before, you could say, if I worry not being good enough, then I will concentrate on the task. That then, in combination, mental contrasting with implementation intentions, a pretty weird term, is what in the science is known as MCII, or mental contrasting with implementation intentions. Now, how does that work? You say, what is my most important wish? A wish that I can fulfill, but it's still challenging. So she might say, I want to really finish my report. The next question is, what would be the best thing if I fulfilled myself that wish? How would I feel? She says, relief. And then she imagines that relief. The next question is, what is it in me that stands in the way of fulfilling my wish and experiencing that outcome? I cannot say no. Imagine cannot saying no. Really imagine it. And then the if-then plan. If I feel I cannot say no, then I will decline and explain that I need to finish my report. And that is WOOP. Wish, outcome, obstacle, and plan. We did a lot of interventions, teaching people WOOP. So for example, improving exercise and diet. People who were interested in improving their lifestyle got a lot of information how you do it. Like you did this morning on how to make good designs, write good emails. The other group got all that information as well, but then they also got WOOP. And then we simply measured how much exercise they did. They got this little Reminder cards, wish, outcome, obstacle, plan. My wish, this evening, I want to exercise. I would feel balanced, imagine. But I'm so tired when I come home. Imagine. If I come home tired at 7 p.m., I take my iPhone and exercise. That automizes your behavior. So what happens? After a week, the people in the WOOP group had double as much as exercise than before and double as much as the control group. So it's a whole hour per week. Even in stroke patients, you find this phenomenon. So we induced WOOP in stroke patients versus the usual treatment and an improved version of the usual treatment. And over a whole year, the WOOP group did better in terms of sport activity and in terms of weight loss. After a year, they reduced the chances of getting another stroke by losing weight and by increasing their exercise. Who feels stressed in their daily life? Who feels burned out? So this study is an online study. We just gave WOOP online to nurses who are really particularly stressed. And what we find is that the overall stress goes down with respect to an active control group and a no treatment control group. And at the same time, they have more fun at work again. So the work engagement goes up. If you really want to talk about binge drinking, come to NYU and look at the freshmen and the sophomores. We tried to reduce the number of binge drinking events. That happens particularly over the weekend. And what you see here with WOOP, the college students had one binge drinking event per 2 weeks less than the control group, which is a lot of alcohol. Now, we replicated that again in an online study with drinkers who drink regularly. And these were hazardous drinkers. And we could reduce 4 drinks a week in this online study. Again, let's move to the academic domain. Children in school. It's an ongoing topic, especially when it comes to doing well on the SAT and the PSAT. It's a hassle, often at home. And that's actually Angela who did that study. She induced WOOP in students, 11th graders, who just were off for the summer. And she gave them a whole wonderful PSAT book to practice the questions until the end of the summer. One group got a learning strategy, the usual one, the other one, the WOOP strategy. And what we find is, when you collect then, in the fall, the books, and just count how many problems have the students tackled and completed, that they do more, 60% more of these practice questions. Now, we replicated that in Germany with respect to homework, as judged by the parents. And we find that you can increase the quality and quantity of homework, but that is particularly true for people who are pre-ADHD, who have predisposed to have ADHD. So what we find throughout our research is when things go getting tough, then WOOP is even more effective. And that's true for alcohol, it's true for smoking, it's true for homework. When you do research in schools, it's really hard because people talk. If you want to randomize 2 groups, one with WOOP and one, let's say, positive thinking, you need to be careful because people will inform each other what group they're in. So here is the WOOP group. My study wish, best outcome, imagine, the obstacle, imagine, and the if obstacle, then action plan. We taught it to them fifth graders. That's the control group. It's also WOOP. My study was best outcome, another good outcome. And if best outcome, then feelings, which is a positive fantasy group. When you compare those here on the right side, then you see that in the active WOOP group, in the real WOOP group, people have a better GPA and they also attend school more frequently. And then finally, let's go to the interpersonal relationship domain again, romantic relationships. There's a large literature showing that anxiety behavior in romantic relationships can be very hurtful for the relationship. If you check on your partner's emails all the time, whether they still love you or whether they go doing something else, that can increase really bad feelings and it can spiral kind of anxiety behavior. So we thought, maybe we can reduce this anxiety-related behavior in romantic relationships with WOOP. And you find that actually it is reduced more effectively than in the control group and in a reverse control group where we didn't do anything else, just switch the O's, that the outcome and the obstacle is switched. If you do the obstacle first, it's no obstacle. You need to embed the reality in the positive fantasy. You need to embed the reality. You anchor them in the positive fantasy. You find more commitment in the romantic relationships. Again, a summary: exercise, stress management, pain management, insomnia. People are fairer to each other, more reconciliation. They take the perspective of others. They're more empathic. Sustainable consumption, less red meat. Work engagement, time management, negotiation, and course grades. Now, what is different in WOOP from traditional behavior change interventions? Traditional behavior change interventions, they go after the attitudes and the beliefs. So they look at changing the attitudes, example, towards exercise, and the self-efficacy of doing exercise. And then they reason that due to the change in attitudes and beliefs, the behavior changes. Now, WOOP is different. WOOP goes into behavior directly because it's so hard to change attitudes and beliefs, especially when people are in their context. Traditional behavior change interventions also use social comparison. For example, in the alcohol field, they say, well, you know, other people drink less than you. Okay, at the moment, people think, oh, I should drink less. But as soon as they are back into their context, they drink as much as before. Or the third one, they affirm people. They say, you're great. But if I'm so great, why should I then change? So affirmation is great for well-being, for feeling good. But if we want to motivate action, affirmation is just not enough. Now, one of the strengths of the WOOP intervention, it's like a bicycle. It's a tool. You need to learn it. It's a skill. You need to practice it. But once you practiced it and you are a little of a WOOP expert, then you can go and take any wish you have in order to treat it with WOOP. So it is a skill. It's a mental skill. It automates behavior. So your behavior is swift, without conscious effort, and you don't need to set another intention. You just do it. You put on your shoes and you go out to exercise. It builds good habits and it breaks bad habits. You can teach it to people of all ages, of all backgrounds, and you can teach it with respect to using it in all sorts of life domains. It is just a structure. The content comes from the person who does it. Okay, what did I do? I talked about the principle of mental contrasting, about the mechanisms. I shared with you some interventions. And now the question is, how can we disseminate that? So that was a question we asked ourselves only after we knew that it works, how it works, and that we can teach it. There's a website. It's called woopmylife.org. And it's translated in many, many languages. It has all the instructional materials, if you really look for it. There are lots of videos, there are lots of audios. Basically, you can teach yourself how to WOOP, how to use WOOP in your daily life. There's a WOOP app. There's a book, Rethinking Positive Thinking, which came out by Penguin Random House a while ago, and it's also translated in many languages. So if you have time, read the book. Otherwise, go on the website. And that's WOOP. Wish, outcome, imagine. Obstacle, imagine. If obstacle, then action plan. And you can use WOOP in any area, at any time, for any wish, trivial and life-changing, short-term, long-term, for the next meeting, for your life. WOOP doesn't cost anything. It's a skill. You can learn WOOP, you can apply it in times of stress. When things are really good, you want to make it a little better. How can I have a better evening? You can WOOP alone. You can ask someone else to be a WOOP buddy. But what you do need to do is practice WOOP. Customize it to your life. Customize it by practicing, practicing, practicing. You can do it, for example, every morning to structure your day. You can do it on Monday to structure your week. You can do it before a critical phone call. You can do it when you feel uneasy, you want to know what's going on here. And if you have questions, download the WOOP app because it has all the instructions on that. So, use WOOP to your avail. Become a WOOP expert, play with it, and the main thing, have fun with it. So, thank you a lot.